After we're done, maybe breakfast will be down enough you can eat that. It's going to be there for the whole
I'm
hour.
not much of an eater, so. doesn't bother.
I am, unfortunately. So. Or fortunately, I don't know. Either way. Fortunately. I have a good appetite. And I used to burn everything up, but I don't do it anymore.
Well, you're still very thin.
Yeah, but I have to watch myself, thanks. When I was younger, I didn't have to watch myself. I could eat as much as I
We
wanted.
all went through that.
Can you see what page we're on?
No, he hasn't, But we left off,
It's
because I put a
23B
paper clip in, we left off the 23B3.
on the left.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Glad you're back after our Thanksgiving break. I apologize about the missing class on the archives. It's on my phone. I have to figure out how to get my personal Facebook account to move a video over to the synagogue Facebook account. I have no idea how to even begin to do that. So I have to find like a 12-year-old who will do it
Ask
for me.
Ivanka Trump.
You're live and being recorded. Okay.
Well, you text it for
So we are in chapter 3 of Tractate Sanhedrin. And to just kind of get us up to speed without doing review through the text, which would get us stuck in the swamp of the text again, the big picture is this. In the Mishnah, there is an argument. And the argument is about whether or not you can disqualify each other's witnesses and or judges. Rabbi Meir seems to allow the disqualification of the other person's witness or witnesses, the other person's judge or judges. The rabbis, the Chachamim, do not like this, and they argue against it. And they bring in this concept of proof about the witnesses, bringing in a reason why you would be disqualifying them, and so forth. Where we went in the Gemara was a couple of different directions. One was reinterpreting the Mishnah so that when it says judge, it really means a Beit Din. So I have a Beit Din and you have a Beit Din, and then they choose a Beit Din. And that didn't really go, that went farther than we would have liked, but it didn't go all the way. So that's not the actual meaning of the Mishnah. Then there was the idea that I have a judge, you have a judge, the two judges choose a third judge. And that went a little ways too, and that might indeed be the system. The Gemara tried to say, what is the reality underneath the Mishnah? What is the case like where they're disqualifying people? Is it that you're living in the far-flung reaches of Montana and there's no qualified Beit Din, so you just kind of, you have to deal with the Beit Din you have, whatever it is? Or is it someplace more like, the center of the yeshiva world of Babylonia, where if you get rid of one Beit Din, it's okay, there's 3 more Beit Dins down the street that you can use. They were also arguing about whether or not there's 1 pair of witnesses or 2 pair of witnesses. The idea here is that perhaps the argument between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim is, if there's 2 sets of witnesses, are you allowed to establish the case based on just one of those sets? Or once you say there's 2 sets, do you have to bring all of your proof to bear? And the reason that was important was, if I'm disqualifying your witnesses, but there's another set out there, then it doesn't really matter if I'm related to the issue of disqualification. Normally I can't testify, where I'm nogea b'davar, where I have to recuse myself from something because I'm involved. But if there's another set out there who's still going to testify against me, then we don't suspect that I'm up to something nefarious when I disqualify the first group. Because I know the second group's going to come in and tell the truth anyway, so I'm not trying to gain anything. So I would be believed, right? So that was an operative principle. And then, clearly, they were having trouble understanding the Mishnah and the basis for it. So we had 3 different examples of when somebody came from Israel to Babylonia. And they told us what this case was about. And all 3 of those rounds of teachings were different from each other, which tells us that maybe back in Israel it wasn't any clearer for them than it is for us trying to figure them out. And that's pretty much where we dropped off. We are now, Tzricha was 2 weeks ago. I didn't have this book. Let me find our spot. We did Rav Dimi on 23b. And we did the Baraita on 23b3. And we did Ravin, came in the name of Rabbi Yochanan on 23b3 at the bottom.
So now we're in 24.
You don't remember Rava?
No.
All right, well, we can pick up there and see.
23B3, that whole
23B3.
thing. I have you stopping at 23B1 on the top. The Gemara Reish Lakish contends. Speaks of a single witness.
No, we were at 23B3 because I
Three?
clicked
Yeah,
it. I clicked it.
all right.
so-
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Must have mismarked it.
let's hold it there at 23b3 in the Schottenstein, and it's going to be Ki Ata Ravin Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Now, I thought we did this, but let's get a running start at it. So, the Gemara is going to figure out why the Mishnah is allowing disqualifying judges and witnesses. We're trying to pull back and get a big picture, like what's the operating principle that's the basis of the argument between Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim. That question is back on the
What
table.
he says, as in this case, you report in the name of whoever it might be.
Rabbi Yochanan, yeah.
You see that a lot.
Yes.
This is the authority he's going back to.
Right. So we believe that this guy, Ravin, himself is an authority. Like we would look at him and say there's like 5,000 rabbis in the Talmud and they're all important. Right? So we're used to people saying the Talmud says, and then, who in the Talmud says it. It doesn't matter. The Talmud says, because the Talmud has authority. But in the Talmud doesn't have authority. In the Talmud, there's a chain of command, and the older the tradition, the more authoritative.
So it's like setting precedent. I mean, it's
Exactly.
like quoting John Marshall.
Exactly. It's like quoting an earlier court, right, as precedent law to determine what's in front of you today. So Ravin, it says when Ravin came, that means when Ravin came to the yeshiva in Babylonia from Eretz Yisrael, from the land of Israel where he had been studying, and he had been studying with Rabbi Yochanan there. He brought the authoritative teaching from Rabbi Yochanan to Babylonia. That's really annoying. Are there doors that can be closed between us and them?
Where are they, in the kitchen?
They're either in the kitchen, but they're probably in this educational wing over
Right,
here.
let me just close those doors.
Yeah, close whatever doors you can find. If you can't hear it online, we're getting construction noises in the background. Okay, so the Mishnah discusses a case where the second litigant, together with another witness, charged both the judges and witnesses were ineligible. I think we've done this. So the question here was, how many people do you need to throw out a witness? Well, you need two. You need two witnesses to establish that the one witness is not kosher. How many witnesses do you need to throw out? Two witnesses. Two, if the two witnesses are testifying that they were together when it happened. So if I have two witnesses, I can disqualify a witness, a set of witnesses. I can disqualify a judge if I have two witnesses. Here's the problem. What if I am one of the witnesses disqualifying the judge?
Can't do that.
Okay? But I'm telling the truth, right? What if I know or have seen something about the judge or about your witnesses that I know for a fact those witnesses are not kosher witnesses for some reason,
But you're the litigant?
but I'm the litigant? Am I allowed to testify?
I think the previous Gemara covered that, did it not?
All right, so that's what's coming up again. So Reisha, the first part of the Mishnah, where Rabbi Meir permitted the litigants to disqualify judges, Be'edim Pesulim v'dayanim kasherim, was a case of witnesses who were ineligible, but the judges were kosher but not yet confirmed. Is going to be the little footnote here to make it easier on us. So presumably they are kasher. So the edim are pesulim, but the beit din is kasher. So Rabbi Meir, according to this interpretation, is going to allow the litigant to disqualify the witnesses as long as the judges are kosher. Migo defasle edim pasle nami dayane. Because since the litigant was proven correct regarding the witnesses, they're disqualified, he should also be believed regarding the judges, whether or not they would be disqualified. Okay? So there's this principle of migo. If you are proven to be telling the truth in one part of your statement, you are now a believable person. and you don't have to bring as much proof when you speak again. You can be proven trustworthy. Okay? So let's cover that again. This is be'edim pasulim v'dayanim kasherim. This is witnesses that are ineligible and judges that are eligible. Migo, however, defasle edim ufasle nami dayane, if he's disqualifying witnesses and the judges, it's a migo. He was believed about the witnesses and he can also disqualify the judges. So you have two different cases. Judges are kosher, judges aren't kosher. Seifa, the latter clause of the Mishnah, where Rabbi Meir allows a litigant to disqualify the opponent's witnesses, b'dayanim pesulim ve'edim kasherim, is when the judges are not kosher, but the witnesses are kosher. Demigo, again amigo argument, de fasle dayane pasle nami edim. He has the power to declare the judges invalid. He was proven right. So he should be able to also declare the witnesses invalid. However, he's allowing them to be kosher, and that would also be believed. It's
Where are we on this?
24A1. We are now on page 24. We just turned the page to 24. Hi, Phil.
How you doing, Boker?
Boker or Tzoraim Tovim.
Afternoon, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
He must have slept late.
Okay, now if that tortured piece of logic didn't make any sense to you, don't worry, because we're going to reject it right now and you'll never have to worry about it again. Mat kifle Rava. Okay, so Rava is going to challenge this. So who's Rava? First of all, who's Rava? Rava is a late Amora. So he's in charge of one of the yeshivot in Bavel, and he has received this tradition which somebody has just dropped on his desk from when Ravin came in a previous generation, quoting Rav Yochanan. So Rava is now a great sage. He's got these Eretz Yisrael traditions in front of him which make no sense, have not clarified the situation. He's dealing with the courts of Syria being weak in some arguments. He's dealing with the rabbis of Eretz Yisrael. He's dealing with three different traditions coming at him. Rava's going to have to make up his own mind. He's going to have to bring his own, not just learning, but his own logic to bear. So Rava is Matkif le Rava. Who's he Matkif? He's actually Matkif Rabbi Yochanan through Rav Dimi, right? So this is Rava, the head of the yeshiva, actually arguing against the logic of one of the great rabbis of Eretz Yisrael of the earlier generations, as he received it in the words of Rav Dimi. So he's going to say, Bishlama, migo defasle eidim pasle nami dayanim. It's understandable to say that the witnesses, if they're not kosher, if they're pasul, that you could also declare the judges pasul. Ika beit din achrina, because there's another beit din that you could go to. Because remember, it's Rava. He's living in a city that has 100 batei din, right? Ella migo defasli dayane fasli nami aidin. But to say that if just because you declared the judges unfit, that you can also declare the witnesses unfit, v'ha aidim tuleka. Where are you going to get other witnesses from to retry the case? So in other words, if it would really undermine the entire system of law.
Right.
If every time there was something wrong with a judge, you refused to listen to the merits of the case from the kosher witnesses, right? Like, why would you let him throw the court out and throw the witnesses out with them? You have to preserve one or the other. You know, whoever's kosher, you have to try and preserve. Now, if the witnesses are not kosher, fine, throw the judges out. Who cares? You don't have witnesses, you don't have a case, right? So if you don't have witnesses, you don't have a case. So he'd say, okay, so in that case, if the witnesses are pasul, you can make the beit din pasul, and that's fine. But if the witnesses are kosher and the beit din's pasul, how can you declare the witnesses no good? Makes no sense. La tzricha de'ika kata cheret. And this is where the argument comes in. No, it can be such a case where there's another set of witnesses. So you could say the judges are pasul, and as a result, these witnesses are pasul only because I have another set of witnesses that are also kosher and will be able to come in with the new beit din. That's what that means. Okay. So this is obviously echoing what we've already heard on the previous page in some of the logic about if there's a second set of witnesses, then you can throw more people out on the first level because you've still got them waiting in the wings. But if there's no second group of witnesses, then what is it? What's the halacha? Hachinami de lo matze pasle. In fact, the second litigant may not disqualify Hainu de Rav Dimi, but that's what Rav Dimi said. So now the Gemara is coming in and saying, okay, so Rava came in and he attacked Rav Dimi by saying, if the witnesses are kosher, you've got to keep them. And then the Gemara answered Rava by saying, except in a case where there's another set of witnesses. And then the Gemara argued with itself and said, but if it's a case where there's another set of witnesses, then the halacha is exactly like Rav Dimi. And I already know that Rava is matkif on Dimi, so you can't have Rava agree with Dimi. So it can't be a case where there's a second set of witnesses. The Stam of the Gemara did all of that to himself, by himself, sitting in a room.
Or maybe he had to share it with us.
Okay?
I'm glad he had so many personalities.
What did you say this guy named?
The Stam of the Gemara, the anonymous editor of the Gemara, the person who wrote the Talmud from all of these different quotes. Every time it says somebody said something, this Stam, this anonymous guy who put the Talmud together, is the one taking it off of this book and out of this scroll and off of that shelf.
They're saying it's the president of Random House.
And basically, it's the editor-in-chief of the Talmud who's deciding which things get quoted in which order, but he doesn't just quote, he actually adds to the arguments. So in this case, he had Rav Dimi and Yochanan, and then he has Rava later quoting it, and then he puts Rava against Rav Dimi, and then he says, yeah, but if that's the case, why would it be? And he adds his own logic to it, and then he says, but my logic's horrible because that would mean that they agree, and we know they don't agree because the first word of the Rava thing that I quoted is matkif, meaning I disagree. So, now what am I going to do since I'm the Stam and I'm so entertaining? Ika benaihu migo. And so the difference between who?
Rav Dimi,
This is going to be Ravin and Rav Dimi, the last two interpretations of the whole argument that were brought from Eretz Yisrael. What do they have that's different between each other? This concept of migo. Demar savar amrina migo, umar savar lo amrina migo. One of them believes that if you believe somebody regarding one half of their claim and it's proven true, the other half of their claim is presumed to be true. And one of these guys believes that that's operative, which means you can throw out the Beit Din and the witnesses, and the other guy does not believe that that's operative, which means you can't do that. Or in another case, one guy believes that's operative, so if you believe one set of witnesses, you're going to believe that the other set of witnesses exists, so you can throw the first set out. Another guy believes, no, just because he said they exist doesn't mean they exist. I don't believe him on the second claim just because the first claim is true. Therefore, I don't think the second group exists until they show up. Therefore, I will not let you discredit the first set. And the two guys are interpreting whether or not migo is an operative principle when they try to understand the argument in the Mishnah between Meir and Chachamim.
right, got it.
Okay? So Dimi and Ravin will interpret what they're doing between Rav Meir and the Chachamim in the Mishnah based on whether or not they think Rav Meir and Chachamim believe in migo. One of them assumes migo is the law of the land and everybody knows it. One of them thinks migo is just ridiculous. Why would you ever do that? And they're interpreting the possibilities in the Mishnah with that limitation between them. So this is
Migo means since.
Migo means since, but it's really a formal word that indicates this concept in jurisprudence where I've made two claims before the court. The first has been proven and the second is hanging out there, neither proven nor disproven. It's presumed to be true because my first claim is proven. That's migo. All right? If you think that's true, then I can disqualify the first set of witnesses because I'm presuming to be true that there's a second set that will come to bear. So I don't have to recuse myself from disqualifying these guys because I've still got other people who are going to testify against me, so I can't be up to anything nefarious. But if migo doesn't work, then the witnesses in front of me are the only witnesses I've got. And therefore, my entire case hangs on them. I am involved in the case. I cannot testify against them, and they can't be removed. Same thing would apply to judges. Okay?
Okay.
Good?
Yep,
If we're not, it doesn't matter. We're moving on. The Gemara digresses.
digresses, right.
Can you imagine? All right. We're going to analyze Reish Lakish's language used earlier on 23a when he explained Rabbi Meir.
Right.
All right, so let's just glance at 23A and make sure we understand who and what Reish Lakish was doing.
Well, that goes back to the beginning.
Pretty darn close to it.
And we can't, it's not on the computer, so we can't just type it.
No, it is, but that's no fun.
Uh,
We should handle books still. Reish Lakish. He's not that far ago. We haven't been at it that long. You find him?
Yeah,
Where?
it says the Gemara answers in the first column.
What page?
What page are you on?
I'm on 23A.
23A what?
Subscription.
4.
Aha. All right, 23A4. The Gemara examines Reish Lakish. Okay. Bottom left of 23A4. Ha itmar Allah. So it was stated regarding the ruling of Rabbi Meir, who allows you to disqualify each other's witnesses and judges, that Amar Reish Lakish, Pei Kadosh Yomar Davar Zeh, remember, such a scholar would say something so stupid? Tani Edo, and Reish Lakish wanted to solve Rabbi Meir's problem by eliminating the word edim or edav from the Mishnah, rewriting the Mishnah to say the word edo, his witness, singular.
Was Adim.
And it's either edim or edav in all the other sources. Right? So that was what Reish Lakish wanted to do. He wanted to make it edolamai regarding the litigant's witness, and then they went into the whole idea of how could he testify against his witness? I know he wasn't there because we were robbing a bank together. Remember that whole, or I know he's from some lineage that's not allowed to be a witness, like the descendant of Canaanite slaves or something like that. He's just not allowed to testify in court. That was what was behind the Gemara's understanding of Reish Lakish. So, Gufa, going back to the text of the Mishnah as amended by Reish Lakish. Amar Reish Lakish, Pei Kadosh Yomar Davar Zeh Tane Edo. So could a holy mouth like Rabbi Meir say such a thing? Let the Mishnah of Rabbi Meir read his witness instead of his witnesses. The Gemara is surprised by Reish Lakish's use of such respectful language. So so what happens? Reish Lakish says, Pei Kadosh. He calls Rabbi Meir a Pei Kadosh, a holy mouth. And then he rips him another orifice. Right? So if you're going to argue with a guy the way you are, say he has a sacred mouth which is completely unbelievable and unacceptable as having uttered something that could never possibly be because it is so ridiculous. What kind of a compliment is that? Like, with friends like this, I don't need enemies. Right? So the Gemara wants to look at that. V'ha'amar Ula. But Ula once said, Haroeh et Reish Lakish beveit midrash, when one saw Reish Lakish studying in the Beit Midrash, Ke'ilo oker harim u'tochonan zebazeh. It was like he was uprooting entire mountains and grinding them against each other. So this is high praise and flattery. Reish Lakish working the texts of Talmud was like somebody who could take giant mountains and grind them against each other by the force of his argumentation. Right? This is a metaphor for a mighty, mighty mind. Okay? That Reish Lakish was an amazing Talmud scholar. And why would this help us at this moment? Because the Gemara has said, how could Reish Lakish say Pei Kadosh about Rabbi Meir and then rip him apart? And one answer is, well, Ula said that Reish Lakish was no shtump. Reish Lakish was an amazing Talmud scholar, like somebody who could level entire mountains with the force of his mind. So the Gemara, so then, of course, he could say, whatever he wants to Rabbi Meir, or maybe he's so brilliant, why would he call someone like Rabbi Meir a Pei Kadosh? Maybe Reish Lakish is even bigger than Rabbi Meir, which we're not going to allow that, but okay.
No.
Amar Ravina. So Ravina comes in and says, Halo kol ro'eh Rabbi Meir bebita midrash keilu oker hare harim v'tochanan zeh bazeh. But Ravina has a tradition that when we saw Rabbi Meir in the Beit Midrash, he was like one who would rip up the greatest of mountains and grind them against each other. So they're equal. So Reish Lakish,
No,
From the
it says that
post-Mishnah period,
Meir is
right?
better than Lachish.
oh, Hare Harim. Oh yeah, the Rabbi Meir was like one who rips apart the mountains of the mountains.
Says his,
You rip apart the Appalachians. He rips apart the Himalayas.
yeah, his brilliance surpassed even that of the
Right? Okay, very good. So that hasn't helped us. Hacha kamar, rather this is what it should say. Bo urei kama mechavavin ze et ze. So now we're going to do a series of agadatot, which are lovely, which talk about the different ways that great Torah sages have respected or deferred to other great Torah sages, even when they're right and the other guy is wrong, but they defer anyways. We're going to get a bunch of these. By the way, when this happens in the Gemara, two things happen. First of all, you thank your lucky stars that they're not pursuing the logic of the Reish Lakish thing anymore, because there's really not much to be done there. They did way too much already. Second, you know the end of the section of the Talmud is coming. At the end of every section before you get a new Mishnah, and at the end of every chapter before you get a new chapter, at the end of every tractate before you get a new tractate, that's where the Stam, the editor, puts in stories. So it's logic, story, new topic. Logic, story, new topic. So now we're going to start to get kind of stories, ethical teachings, and maxims, and that tells you that we're, okay, let your brain heal from what we
Say the
just did.
easy stuff.
So you're done with Braitas and you go into Aguda?
A good agadata, right. So we're done with Baraitot, and we're done with Hilcha, Halacha, and we're done with the Pilpul, we're done with the back and forth, and the Shakla Vitaria, and the different variant sources and texts and all that stuff. We're going to kind of lay it off to the side for a second, and we're going to talk about what it means to be a person. Right? That's what so Talmud brings us into. Okay.
So I guess Reish Lakish, Ula, and Ravina, they were all post-Mishnah. They were all...
Reish Lakish is post-Mishnah, but not by much. He's Eretz Yisrael.
Right.
Ula is one of the guys who comes from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, and Rava would have received teaching from Ula.
I think Ulu was also a character in Star Wars.
Ula is one of the Star Wars characters?
Probably got it from.
I have no idea. Okay, so here we go. Hachi Kamar. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
just trying to get the time frame. There's 70 years between the first and the second temple or so, and when you talk about the destruction, and then
Temple is destroyed by the Romans in 70. Bar Kokhba revolution is in the years 130, and that's the last Jewish revolt, and it's crushed. All hope of getting the temple in Jerusalem back is gone, except for prayer hope, right? The rabbis regroup, and the Mishnah is written in Sippori at the end of the 100s, and by the year 200 it's finished, and by 203, 204, Ula has come to Bavel with the Mishnah in his hand.
Most of this post-second temple.
It's all post-Second Temple. When you get something of a Kiva, or, Hillel Shammai, those are people who saw the temple.
Yeah, because I thought there was this transition between 1 and 2 where they went to Bavel and then came back.
No,
Okay, none of the.
no.
Wow.
Destruction of the temple, everyone's still in Israel until the year 200. There are Jews in Bavel, but that's because there have always been Jews in Bavel. Since the destruction of the first temple, there have been Jews in Bavel. Not everyone came back with Ezra and Nehemiah. So until Saddam Hussein, there was an uninterrupted settlement of Jews in Iraq, going back all the way to the year, 586 or earlier, 600 before the Common Era. Okay, here we go. Hachi Kamar. Okay, so how can Reish Lakish have said Pei Kadosh about Meir and then criticized him, right? So is this respect? Is this disrespect? Well, Reish Lakish was amazing, and oh yeah, Rabbi Meir was even more amazing of amazing. All right, Hachi Kamar. Bo urei kama mechavavim zedza. Come see how much Torah scholars love each other. Ki hadiatev Rabbi v'ka'amar asur lahatmin et hatzonen. So, for example, Rebbe, which is Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he was sitting, sitting means sitting, studying, teaching, lecturing. And he was teaching the laws of why it is forbidden, asur, lahatmin, to insulate, like in one, like, the pizza delivery bags, right? Those things on the backs of the motorcycles, insulated bags,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. They had a whole series of ways to try and keep food hot or keep food cold, right? There's nothing worse than room temperature food, right? So here, Rebbe is teaching that it is forbidden to keep food cold on Shabbat, which really doesn't make a lot of sense, because what would be the derivative category? If you go to the 39 categories of forbidden things on Shabbat, taught in Tractate Shabbat, it's things like digging a hole, planting a seed, watering the seed,
Tanning leather is one.
tanning leather, killing the animal, flaying the animal, tanning the leather, all kinds of productive things to produce what was in the Mishkan in the wilderness are forbidden on Shabbat, because the Torah says they didn't do those things on Shabbat. They held off from it. So one of the things you couldn't do on Shabbat, except for the sacrifice itself, was cook, right? So you can't cook. And so there's all kinds of rules about, well, can you keep things warm, right? And so they didn't want you actively packing things onto and around the bed of coals on Shabbat, which is why if you're very strict and you have a blech in your Shabbat home, and you have the food on the blech, keeping warm, depending on what the food is, once it comes off the blech, some food you're not allowed to put back on it, right? Just, there are rules and there are rules and there are rules. So there's this concept that you're not allowed to insulate for warmth on Shabbat. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is then saying, and therefore you're not allowed to insulate to keep things cold on Shabbat, because insulating is the problem, right?
Can't use a thermos.
I would say you can't pack a thermos. Like if it was in the thermos before Shabbos, and you went out to your snow fort, and you studied your Gemara, and you wanted your thermos with your hot chocolate in it, you could still drink it, right? But you can't necessarily put anything into that thermos on Shabbat, I would say. Amar lefanav Rabbi Yishmael Berei de Rav Yossi. So Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yossi, came before Rabbi, and he said, Abba hitir latmin et atzonen. Neener, neener, neener. My father allowed it. Now,
We still hear that nowadays.
all right, now what's the pecking order here? Rabbi Yossi is bigger than Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, but Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is bigger than Rabbi Yishmael, presumably. Okay?
Wait a minute, how did Rabbi Yossi get bigger than,
He was before him.
before?
Okay? Maybe, maybe not. But what happens? Rebbe says, Amar lahem kavar horazakain. So an elder has already ruled. In other words, I take it back.
Okay.
I'm sitting here teaching, and it's very logical to me. I'm forceful, I'm clear, this is the way it is supposed to be, this is the halacha.
But somebody
And
saw
one
it.
of my students comes up and says, but my father used to allow it. And he says, okay, one of the great sages of Israel has already ruled on this matter, so that's the precedent law.
I'm
And
getting confused here. Shouldn't that just be, my father committed, it's Rabbi, so it'd be Rabbi Ishmael, because he was the son, I mean, it should be Rabbi Yossi, because he was the son of.
Rabbi Yishmael is talking, Rabbi Yossi is the gadol. He's the big guy. So Rabbi is not saying Rabbi Yishmael has already ruled on this. Rabbi is acknowledging that Rabbi Yossi already ruled on this. All right? Now he
would
might,
Refer to Rabbi Yossi?
he's deferring to Rabbi Yossi. The question is, because we're saying Kama Chavavim, how beloved are scholars to each other. Rabbi could have said to Rabbi Yishmael, you little stump, how dare you interrupt my lecture? Don't you know who I am? But he didn't. He immediately deferred. So he's actually mechavev. He's being loving and welcoming and respectful, not only to Rabbi Yossi, alav hashalom, but to Rabbi Yishmael Beno. Rabbi Yishmael is receiving great kavod and deference here from Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. And Rabbi Yishmael hasn't done anything to deserve that, other than quote his father.
But otherwise, he sat subordinately, so.
You would think. But that's not what happened. And remember, this is the part of the Agadah, of the legends of the Talmud, that will be telling you how kind and forbearing and loving and supportive and respectful Torah scholars are to each other, even when they conflict. Right? That's the idea. Amar Rav Papa. So Rav Papa commented on it. Bo'urei kam machavavim zed zed. Come see how scholars love each other so much, this one to the other. De'ilu Rav Yossi kayam haya kafuf v'yoshev lefanav Rabbi. For had Rav Yossi been alive, he would have sat subordinately before Rabbi. So this claim is that Rabbi Yossi, even though he's the elder, would have deferred to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, because Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was a Nasi. He was the legal head of the Sanhedrin, and Rabbi Yossi would have deferred to him. But in this case, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is actually deferring to Rabbi Yossi, alav hashalom, of blessed memory, through his son. Daha Rabbi Yishmael Bared Rav de Yossi, Mimale Makom Avotav Hava V'Haya Kafuf V'Yoshev Lifnei Rabbi. So Rabbi Yishmael, the son of Rabbi Yossi, was his father's successor. He earned his seat. Right? He got his seat in Shul after his dad died. He got his place on the Beit Din after his dad died. And he should have kafuf, bowed, and sat before Rebbe in Rebbe's presence to defer to Rebbe. V'kamar kvar hora zaken, and yet when Rebbe heard of Rabbi Yossi's ruling from this kid, relatively speaking, although he's not a kid, he's a full-blown rabbi at this point, he says, the elder sage has taught. So it's a little repetitious, it just fills out the language a little more. All right, now the Gemara is going to give a Torah quote for how Torah scholars in Israel were very loving to each other, but Torah scholars in Bavel were rude. All right, so we evidently have a different culture of Torah learning in Bavel, which is interesting because the Gemara is written in Bavel, the editor is in Bavel, and the editor is bringing this idealized view of the rabbis of Israel treated each other with respect, and you guys are always biting and sniping and yelling and screaming. It's interesting. It's an editorial comment by the Talmud on the sages of his day. Okay, Amar Rabbi Oshaya. Here's how it goes. Rabbi Oshaya says, "My dichti ve'ekach li et shnei makalot la'achad karati noam la'achad karati chovlim." So what does it mean when it says in Zechariah chapter 11, I took for myself two staves, one I called gracious and the other I called assaulters. So Zechariah has a vision of the return of the exiles to the land of Israel, and he has multiple images that he uses to show that there's two parts of the people, or there's the leaders of the priests and the leaders of the rabbis interpreted of the Torah. He has a bunch of different stuff where he's got images of more than one thing, and then you have to figure out what is he talking about. Like, what do the two staves represent? What do the two bowls of oil represent? What does the tree represent? Zechariah uses metaphor in his prophecy. So we're going to use that here, and we're going to see what the rabbis do. So what does it mean, Rabbi Yeshaya says, when Zechariah says, I took for myself two staffs, one called gracious, one called assaulters. Noam, meaning traditionally graciousness or pleasantness, Elu Talmidei Chachamim shebe'eretz Yisrael, sheman imin zelazeh bahalacha. This is Zechariah's image, metaphor is about the land of Israel scholars who are always pleasant towards each other while they debate the halacha. Right? So, chovlim, assaulters, whackers, hitters, something like that. Elu talmidei chachamim shebevavel shemechablin zelazeh bahalacha. They're the students of the sages in Babylonia who hurt and hit and attack each other with the halacha. Okay? Vayomer Eli el shnei b'nei ha'itzhar ha'omdim, and so on. And he said, these are the two sons of the oil who stand, and so on. Same Zechariah. Ushnaim zeitim alea. And it says earlier in the chapter, and two olive trees next to it. So as I anticipated for you, there's two olive trees, and there's two sons of the oil, or two bowls of overflowing oil, something like that. And what does this represent? Yitzhar, the oil. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak said, Elu talmidei chachamim shebe'eretz Yisrael shenochim zelazeh b'halacha Kishemen Zayit. The oil represents the students of the sages of the land of Israel who are easygoing with each other like pure oil with each other. Ushnaim zeitim alea elu talmidei chachamim shebebavel shemirurim ze lazeh b'halacha kazayit. And the two olive trees next to it represent the students of the sages in Babylonia who are as bitter towards one another as an olive tree, as the olive itself.
And Rav Yitzchak was roughly when?
Rav Yitzchak is another more of Babel.
Well, we could test it, there's some olives over there.
So the idea is that you have bitter olives but pure olive oil, right? So the editor is really blasting his own people and idealizing the land of Israel. All right, further criticism for Bavel. Ready? Ve'esaynai ve'erei v'chine shtayim nashim yotzot v'ruach b'chanfeihem v'laena k'nafayim k'kanfei ha'chasida v'tisena et haifa bein ha'aretz v'bein ha'shamayim. And it says, and I lifted my eyes and I saw, okay, who are we quoting here? Still Zechariah. I lifted my eyes and I saw, and behold, two women came out, and a wind was in their wings, and they had wings like wings of a chasida, which is a stork, like big, giant, long, narrow wings. And they lifted up the ephah measure, which is, ephah is the measurement of the mincha offering of flour between the earth and the heavens. So you have this concept of I saw, there's women with wings out, and there's a space between them, between the earth and the heavens. And I said, Va'omar el malach adover bi ana hema molichot et ha'ephah. And I said to the angel that spoke with me, where are they taking this ephah? Vayomer alai, and the angel said to me, Livnot la bait ba'aretz Shinar. And they took it to build a house in the land of Shinar.
What's Shinar?
Okay, all right. So now we need to understand it. So you've got several images here that the Gemara is going to try and understand. Zechariah has an image, it is of women with wings and an ephah that they are bringing from whatever this miraculous place is they're coming from, and they're taking it to the land of Shinar, which is not the land of Eretz Yisrael and not the land of Bavel. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. So Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Shimon ben Yochai, Zo chanufa hagasot v'haruach sheyardu levavel. These represent sanctimony and arrogance that descended to Babylonia. So the women and the ephah are arrogance and sanctimony.
What's an ephah?
An ephah is a measure of, usually a measure of flour for a mincha offering.
But they don't tell you what's in the.
But they don't. It's a,
Just
they're interpreting it.
Well, why does the Gemara
I'm
need
taking
two
a gallon,
examples from Zechariah?
and they're not saying what's in the gallon, what the gallon is.
Why does the Gemara
Maybe
need
it's
two
oil.
examples from
Do you
Zechariah?
think it's oil, because we just had the oil?
What the Gemara has is multiple traditions that say Eretz Yisrael were well behaved and
Yes.
we are surly, unruly children.
Got that.
Yes.
He's bringing each of those traditions. There seems to be a tradition.
Two
What they're
proofs.
building, what if
There
they-
seems
they're
to be a
building
tradition
a house?
that this
So it's-
condemnation of Bavel comes from Zechariah. Zechariah has several places where he has a this and that, this and that. So they're going to try and make the teaching apply to each of his places where he has a this and that. The hardest one of them all is the women, which is not a this and that. It's a those with this, those women with this ephah. And they're going to Shinar. Shinar is not Bavel. So this proof text
Shinar is what?
is not Bavel. So this proof text at this point makes no sense and does not work.
Okay.
So he needs to make it work.
Is there a
Why did he
place
bring it in
on-
the first place?
Because he can make it work.
Is there a place on a map one could say, hey, here's Sheena?
Yeah.
There is a,
South?
South of where?
South of civilization. I mean, we could look it up. I can do it, it takes 2 seconds. In our world, it takes 2 seconds.
It might be Shinar West and Shinar East.
so the women are angels truly, is that right? So woman angel?
Why not?
Not so fast.
Hang on. It tried to take me someplace else.
Yeah, there's a third part of this, there is an angel it's saying to the angel, where are they taking the earth at?
Because the women with the wings are taking the ephos.
Yes, but there's an angel who's kind of telling
Giving them
what's going on.
directions.
Yeah, telling it's happening.
Okay, so Shinar. Shinarabah occurs 8 times in Hebrew Bible, in which it refers to Bavel, to Babylonia. Location Shinar is evident from its description encompassing Bavel, Babylonia, north, and Erech Uruk, southern Babylonia. So my take on it was the southern area, closer to Ur, closer to Kuwait. Okay,
Oh, that's way.
but it's not Eretz Yisrael, right? So this is Zechariah in Bavel receiving tradition that these angelic women bring an ephah of something to Shinar, which could be Bavel, but maybe it is, maybe it isn't. So what happens? So we're trying to prove Bavel is bad. So we have this proof from Zechariah, and V'gasot haruach levavel nachit, is arrogance descending to Bavel? V'ha'amar Mar, but Mar said, Asra kabim gasot yardu la'olam tish'a natla elam, v'achat kol ha'olam kulo. We have a tradition that says 10 measures of arrogance descended to the world. Elam got 9 of them, that's Persia, and 1 for the rest of the world, leaving no arrogance left over to have given to Bavel. Get it? All right. Ein, true, good point. Levavel nachit. Did it go to Babylonia? Ishtar bove, the Ishtar bavle elim. But then it went to Elam. So you have this thing where you have the women with the wings who bring the ephah, which
They
is being
made several
interpreted
stops.
as arrogance, and the arrogance was brought to Shinar, which is understood to be Bavel, which is why the Bavel guys yell at each other in Shul. Is that so? But I have the tradition that says there were 10 measures of arrogance given to the world, 9 of which are in Persia, and 1 for the rest of the world. True, but this measure was given to Bavel first before they took it to Persia.
How many hogs are in it?
It's an Agadah. It's an
Of course
Agadah.
it is, yeah.
Okay, Dikanami. You know what? And that we could be really specific. This is also proven another way. Dichtiv, because it is written, Livnot la vait ba'eretz Shinar. It says to build a house in the land of Shinar. So there's 2 women in the vision, right? Livnot la bait beit Shinar. So what's the other woman doing? Shmamina. So you learn from it. You learn from the fact that there's 2 women and only one is doing the Shinar thing, that the other must have been doing the other thing that we're looking for someone to have done, which in this case is arrogance. Okay? So it's like the 2 angels or something with Abraham. You have these 2, one brings it down, and what was the other one doing? The other one took it to Persia.
Okay.
V'hamar Mar. But Master said, Mar is somebody's name, by the way. There was a guy named Master. Siman legasot haruach aniyut. So an indication of arrogance is poverty, right? So, if you want to know who's arrogant, look for poverty, because poverty is what happens to arrogant people. I'm not saying that's true economically. This is just what the Gemara says at this point. All right? So, since there's poverty that's widespread in Bavel at the time of the editing of the Talmud, it would seem that they are being punished for their arrogance, so the arrogance must still be in Bavel and not have gone off to Persia. Remember, he's trashing Bavel. The whole point of the editor here is to tell Bavel that they're not doing well.
Getting a little weak because there was poverty in Israel too, in the land of Israel.
But they're, at this point, at this level of the Talmud, 5th, 6th, 7th century, nobody's in Israel. If there's anybody in Israel, they're not writing books. It's been 2 centuries since anything was written in the Jerusalem Talmud at this point. The 95% of the Jews in the world live within a 2 days journey of this guy writing this book. So Bavel is the whole story at this point. And what we can tell here is things aren't good. Economically, things have gone bad. There's widespread poverty, there's infighting, there's, right? What this may seem to be a legend, but what I read out of this is that the last layers of Talmud in Bavel, things were bad.
Yeah, but he goes on to say it's poverty in Torah.
Even worse.
Well, that's hard to believe.
No, but the yeshivot were falling apart.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't have with the poverty with okay, so you've got a Zoroastrian group on the rise, you've got the early Muslims on the rise, all these kind of things start to happen, and the Jewish community and the economy of Bavel, it starts to fall apart and get destroyed in the late 500s, 600s, 700, all falls apart. That's why the Talmud is closed. No books are being written because nobody can afford to send their kids to school anymore. And you wind up the books being taken across North Africa and to other places, and you get Kairouan and Alexandria and Yemen, different places with centers of learning, right, as things start to gravitate to the West again. So this is the last level of the Stam where he's bringing in Agadatah and stuff, and the Agadatah are about an infighting Babylonian rabbinate in a time of poverty, and he says, punishment for the sin of arrogance. These are sharp.
This is what, around 600?
This would be around 600, I would say. So this is matching what we know to be going on economically and politically in the world around them at this time. And in that context, this is a poignant little layer of Talmud. Now, we might come at it and say, oh, these are Bubba Mises and some of the worst Bubba Mises I've ever heard, right? But if you tease out and say, what's going on historically, what's the context? These are very telling. You say, why did he bring this second proof text? Well, if he brings a second proof text, he's got a prophet speaking against the people who are in exile in Babylonia, bringing down arrogance upon them, right? And what's the hope?
That they'll go back to Israel again.
Well, that's the eternal hope, but he doesn't bring it here, right? The only hope here is going to be Torah, right? So in the end, my aniut, what is true poverty? Aniut Torah, it's poverty in Torah. Dichtiv, achot lanu ketana ushadayim ein la. From the Song of Songs, we have a little sister and she has no developed breasts yet. Now, you need to understand, that's going to be Torah. Torah is the milk that nurses us and gives us life. So if we have become not full-blown, women who can nurse our young, if we are prepubescent girls who don't have breasts, we're not able to nurse the young, right? All bets are off. So, for it is written, our sister is young, has no breasts. Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Zo Elam, Shezachta lilamod velo zachta lilamed. So this refers, for example, to the people to the east of us who learned Torah but didn't learn to teach it, which is maybe what's going to happen to us. My Bavel, so what does the word Bavel mean? Amar Rabbi Yochanan says the word Bavel is blula b'mikra, blula b'mishnah, blula b'talmud. Completely saturated with Mikra is Torah, Mishnah is rabbinics, and Talmud is study. So you have the sense that Bavel is inundated with the truth of Torah, and yet we have these troubles going on. V'machshakim choshivani b'mitei olam. He has placed me in darkness like the eternally dead. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah ze Talmudah shel Bavel. This is the Talmud of Bavel. Darkness like the eternally dead. It's a very depressing condemnation.
But why they ended the editing of the Talmud?
I could picture him. Remember, the Talmud was not edited in the order of the books that we have today.
I understand.
What if this were the last chapter he ever wrote? What if this was the end of his editing? Thinking that there's no yeshiva to study my work. This was a place that was once inundated with living Torah, Mishnah, and Talmud, and it has fallen prey to arrogance and infighting and poverty. And like the people in Persia who were able to come to us and study, but were never able to go and form their own yeshivas to teach, we have become placed into a place of eternally death, darkness. Not just Bubba Mises.
No,
Things are bad.
but it contrasts with all the traditional history that we've learned over the years, at least that I've learned, that the Bavel ended not because of this, but for other reasons.
Why did Bavel end then? What possible good reason did Bavel end for?
Well, the drifted back to Israel.
It sidestepped Israel completely. It went across the Mediterranean to North Africa and to Europe.
Is that Papadusa and all that stuff?
Well, you've got the story of the four rabbis who, like, there's a midrash about the four rabbis who bring the teachings from the east, and they get taken by marauders and they get sold off and ransomed to different places, and that's the founding of the yeshivot of North Africa and so forth. No, the truth of the matter is, most of our liturgical cycles historically end in destruction.
All liturgical cycles.
Literary cycles, I'm sorry. Our literary cycles, levels of literature. So the destruction of the first temple ended classical prophecy
Right.
and that stuff. And then we have the return prophecy, and we have the prophets of exile and teshuvah, and that's a whole nother layer of prophecy. That's destroyed by Romans, right? Then we have Mishnah, which things fall apart in northern Israel and it gets taken to Bavel. Bavel flourishes for several centuries, and then it falls apart, and the Talmud is concluded and taken elsewhere,
To North Africa, roughly.
to North Africa and also into Europe. By the 10th century, we've got people studying Talmud in the Rhineland. So, they get there fairly soon. Each layer is the close of an era. As we close historical areas, we tend to consolidate our literature and leave our books behind. There's this round of editing. With the destruction of Spanish Jewry comes the Kabbalah. How does Kabbalah wind up in book form? Right? Well, Spain is being taken over by the Christians, and they're going to throw all the Jews out, and things are bad. And it kind of gets put into books, and then the books get taken to other places and have their influence. So I think this is a late level of editing that we see here.
Yeah.
All right, it's 1 o'clock, and we made it to the Mishnah, just like I said last time we would. The Mishnah is going to look really, really familiar, because the Mishnah got quoted in the Gemara that we've already studied. Okay? Now, why would that happen? Why would the Gemara, as it's dealing with the last Mishnah, be quoting this Mishnah?
I'm sorry, I was taking notes.
I was asking everyone. Why would the Gemara, while it's dealing with the last Mishnah, be quoting this Mishnah when it's the very next Mishnah? It's not like it's some Mishnah from Bava Kama or something.
Probably some other issue.
That's something that's important, they wanted to be focusing on, maybe a different way of looking at it.
It's a much easier answer. Their Gemara did not have the Mishnah in it.
No?
No. Having the Mishnah dropped in here and here and here and here was a decision of the publishing house of Vilnius, Lithuania in the 1800s.
You're kidding, really?
I'm not kidding. Now, what happened is you have manuscripts that will have a Mishnah, right, interspersed along the Gemara as well, but it doesn't break in any consistent manner from manuscript to manuscript. You have manuscripts that might have had this Mishnah included in the Mishnah we just studied. So whereas the Mishnah we just studied is like Mishnah 1 and Mishnah 2 of this chapter, and maybe this is Mishnah 3, many manuscripts might have had Mishnah 1, 2, and 3 as the beginning of this section of the Gemara, and there would be no break for Mishnah here. Gemara would just be continuing now. So the idea that this is the Mishnah for this Gemara is actually a much later decision once we have a printing press. So of course they're going to quote the next Mishnah, because that's the section of Mishnah that they're dealing with right now.
Very interesting.
Fair enough?
Yeah.
Don't you love those little tidbits? All right, that's it for us. We'll be on next week, and we'll pick up with the next Mishnah.
And then I go to Florida.